Hello and welcome to Let's Review. JRPGs are really long games. This is a fairly well-known fact. As a result of this, the Hyperdimension Neptunia Let's Play is still ongoing, and anyone who's followed this channel for a while should know what that means. It is time once again to go digging in the crate. Anyone who's followed my channel for a while will know that I really like giant robots. I'm also rather partial to RTS games, so an RTS game that it mainly features giant robots? Oh, that just pushes so many of my buttons. So, this week, I want to talk about Supreme Commander. You mean Total Annihilation 2? I will freely admit that it is the spiritual successor to Total Annihilation, especially given that it was spearheaded by the same guy. Supreme Commander takes place in the far future, when humanity is at war. Three factions now exist: the United Earth Federation, the Cybran Nation, and the Aeon Illuminate. And rather than deploying armies, the three sides all now use commanders, single pilots inside of massive war robots called ACUs that are capable of constructing an entire legion of remote-controlled units. I can't decide if that makes war better or worse. Neither can I, especially given that this war has now been going on for slightly more than a millennium. The main thrust of the campaign tells the story of the last days of the war. The UEF, given that it is now badly losing, is trying in desperation to hold the line long enough to complete its Project Black Sun, a superweapon that they believe is capable of turning the tide. The cybernetically enhanced Cybrans want to use this weapon to free all of their brethren who have been enslaved, and the Aeon Illuminate want to use it to spread their religion throughout the galaxy. It's a versatile little superweapon, then. Yeah, right, I will admit that the Black Sun canon is a bit MacGuffin-y, but while the plot is a little bit bog standard, what really sells this game in my mind are the characters, which are all really good, really flawed, and above all, they are just so very human. Are you tearing up? I remember the first time that you played it. It did not have this effect on you back then. Well, back then I was too enamoured with the giant robots to really appreciate just how well written and acted it was. And for the record, the giant robots are well worth being enamoured over. The art in this game is absolutely fantastic. All of the unit designs are gorgeous, and especially some of the top tier ones look fantastic. My personal favourites include the giant flying saucer, the giant spider walker with a honking great laser on its back, and the submarine aircraft carrier. And you didn't even mention the giant robot with a laser for a face and gravity guns for hands. No, because while that is undoubtedly awesome, if I took the time to list everything in this game that is, we'd be here until next week. The other thing that Supcom really brought to the RTS table was a sense of scale. Everything in it feels huge, and that's at least partially because the maps are massive. To the best of my knowledge, they are still the largest maps ever created for an RTS game, and at any point you can scroll the mouse wheel back and view the entire map on one screen. And the sense of tactical knowledge that this gives you cannot be overstated. Don't most RTS games do the exact same thing, but with a mini-map? They do, and it works for the most part. I just massively prefer this way of doing it. It lets you zoom out and zoom back in wherever you need to very quickly and effectively. The sense of scale really is the best thing that Supcom has going for it, and if I can go back to the campaign for a moment, even though there are only 6 missions to each campaign, one for each faction, each one of those feels really vast as the map expands and expands and expands as you gain new objectives and progress through the storyline of each mission. And as a result, it'll take you at least 2, maybe 3 hours to do every mission. So about 5 in your case then, given the way you play most RTS games anyway. Well, yeah, I like to turtle, and boy does Subcom let you do that. But let's be honest, a base doesn't really feel like yours until it's got about 300 turrets ringed around it. And a lot of long-range artillery pieces. Yeah, the way I like to play, by the time I actually send any units into the enemy's base, I should be able to conquer the whole thing with like 1 tank. That's just fun to me. Yes, but as I have stated on many an occasion, you are rather strange. And proud of that fact. Supreme Commander received an expansion pack in the form of Forged Alliance, which introduced new units, a new faction, and a new campaign, in which the 3 old factions are forced to work together against a new threat, the Seraphim. The campaign this time was done a little differently, as rather than 3 separate sets of missions, you got a single set that could be played as any of the 3 factions. And depending on which one you picked, you would get different dialogue and different side objectives. And it works pretty well for the most part. I do genuinely enjoy the Forged Alliance campaign. I just wish at some point you got to play with the new Seraphim. Would that have made any sense at all within the bounds of the plot? No, but I would still have done it. I mean, even if you only made it a reward for finishing the campaign as the other 3 factions, it would have at least added something genuinely new and interesting. Forged Alliance improved over the base game an awful lot, most notably with a major update to the UI that made it a lot easier and quicker to use. And as a result, if you go looking for a multiplayer skirmish, you can probably still find one. This game has a fairly devoted fan base, and while I'm not much of a multiplayer guy, I absolutely get why they still enjoy playing it. It's a fairly unique RTS game. Subcom did get a full sequel, but that's a discussion for another time. Are you ever actually going to do a sequel episode? Some point I will. Look, tell you what, next time I do a Digging in the Crate, I'll talk about a sequel to something I've already talked about. Fair enough? Very well, though I will hold you to that. I would expect nothing less. Supreme Commander is an excellent game, and frankly, I would strongly recommend you go out and get yourself a copy, especially if you pick up Forged Alliance at the same time. It is well worth playing, and it's still very unique. Now, if you'll excuse me, I've gone and got myself in a giant robot kind of a mood, so I'm going to go rewatch Pacific Rim. I'll see you later.